But now we move forward to our last speaker for this morning. And this time it has something to do with becoming an academic. A big question that a lot of scientists will have to ask themselves is, do I want to be part of industry or do I want to be part of the academy? And I believe our third speaker would have some very meaningful things to say about that. Our third speaker is Dr. Charlle L. She is a full professor and research fellow in the Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering of the DLSU University. She earned her BS and MS degrees in industrial engineering from the same university. Meanwhile, she obtained her PhD in industrial and systems engineering from the National University of Singapore. Her research interests are on robust optimization and systems thinking. In her most significant contribution to the body of scientific literature in operations research, she developed an algorithmic framework called Target-Oriented Robust Optimization, or TORO, which integrates uncertainty at the point of decision-making and guarantees computational tractability, such that models can be solved efficiently to yield solutions. Dr. C has extensively used TORO for the design and planning of engineering systems, including infrastructure and network planning in the fields of energy, production, and water networks. She is currently active in different theoretical and applied research projects dealing with sustainability and supply chain systems. Without further ado, it is my honor to introduce Dr. Charlle L.
Thank you, Chona. And good morning to everyone. So let me share. Okay, so good morning to everyone, and thank you for inviting me in this WiSTEM lecture series. So my talk today is slightly different, okay? Because basically, I'll be sharing how I got into this profession. So the reluctant academic actually refers to me. I'm that academic. So what made me go into the academe, what actually made me stay, and what I look forward to in the near future. Okay, so since Sean already gave the introduction, I'll just skip this and start with this slide. So it's a picture of a crossroad, because when I was thinking of what I actually wanted to share, I realized that most of the significant milestones in my life happened after I get past these types of crossroads. So I'll share one. I never planned to be in the academia. I never planned to be a professor. Being like in our family, like in our culture, like being a Filipino Chinese, it's not something that is like number one in your future plans. But I decided to do my BSMS. That's the first crossroad. It was a ladderized program, so that meant I will be alone when when I'll be doing my MS. So most of my batchmates have already graduated. And one day I was talking to my advisor. This was already the last year in my BSMS. And I told him that I wasn't really sure whether I wanted to go to the industry, or like basically I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do next. On a fateful day, he gave me the application to a scholarship in the National University of Singapore. And I knew it was going to be competitive, because I was reading through the guidelines, and they will just be getting 10 from the entire ASEAN region. And my grades weren't really spectacular, if you want to describe it. I actually graduated without Latin honors. It was honorable mention at best. So I knew it was a long shot, but I guess you can call it fate. I received the acceptance letter maybe like 1 to 2 months after applying. It was still before my graduation, so it was a bit overwhelming, but luckily I had my support group with me, like my parents. I had a mom who probably didn't understand what I was doing in school, but was always supportive, because she knew that this opportunity wouldn't come again or frequently, and I had a dad who listened to my mom. Okay, so long story short, I got into NUS. It was exciting, frightening, because practically I'll be the first in the family to do this, first time to be alone. But I was confident enough because I knew that DLSU gave me the foundation that I needed to be competitive in NUS. So honestly, the 4 years that I spent studying in NUS would probably be the hardest. There were times that I wanted to really just go home, pack my things, and stop. But obviously, that didn't happen. And the reason why, I guess, is because being put into a different environment is a shock to the system. In DLSU, we have our friends, and it's a different environment. In NUS, it was really competitive. From day one, you knew that you were alone, that you knew that you couldn't really expect the same support that you got from your professors, from your classmates back in the Philippines or in DLSU. But I could actually say that because of this environment, because of the same environment that I dreaded or that I experienced, it actually made me stronger. It was in NUS where I found my footing. Why? Because I learned to trust myself, that I learned to learn by myself. No one will help you, but in the end, actually one of my professors told me that within 6 months, you can actually learn anything. And I put that into heart because as mentioned as mentioned in the introduction, I now work in the field of optimization. And believe it or not, when I was still in DLSU, I avoided everything related to optimization. It was one of my average subjects. I didn't really excel in that, but again, with practice, determination, I think I can say that I can consider myself well versed enough so that it's one of the subjects that I teach in right now. And I wanted to include this because NUS gave me a lot of opportunity, and one of them is really the realization. Just look at the photo and you will see that women weren't the minority. There's just one class. So we all, the graduating class of 2013. There's just one batch. And I think, and what's struck me right now when I was preparing the slide is that I hope to see Philippine universities producing this much PhD graduates in a year. And this just from industrial engineering. I don't think we're in this point yet, but it's always a dream to have more students exploring graduate studies. So NUS also gave me the opportunity to work in ExxonMobil. So this was in New Jersey. And again, it surprised me because when I stepped foot in the company, everyone had PhD degrees. And again, it's something that is a rarity in our country. When I was actually going through the job expo in DLSU, I don't know if you've experienced, probably not if most of the audience here are senior high. One of the HR managers told me that you don't really need graduate degrees if you want to go to the corporate world. And I guess looking at a multinational going into a multinational company, I worked in the ExxonMobil project for a year, but I spent 3 months in New Jersey. It really opened my mind that further studies, graduate studies, are actually very much valued in companies like this. So aside from the things that I learned in NUS, there are more intangible things that I actually brought back. Yes, I decided to come home to DLSU and and now I'm part of the department. So that's how I got into this field. And now what made me stay? First, mentors turned colleagues, but actually they're still my mentors. So the first photo above, that's our department. And then the photo below, this is the research group that I'm part of. We actually come from different university, different background. Some work in chemical engineering, some work in economics, College of Science. So I guess it's what made me stay is that knowing that things are always different, it's always exciting. Aside from that, these are the students that I actually handle. So aside from being a professor, I also would like I also like join them in their final year trips. So this was in Japan. We were in Disney Sea. So that's their graduating trip. And this, I'm just showing you some photos. So this is the first batch, the photo on the left. This is the first batch of students that I handled. So 3 thesis groups. And I don't know if you recognize, wait, let me, how do you do this? Okay. I don't know if you recognize one person here. It's actually Paulo Guico from Ben and Ben. So these are the 3 groups, and until this day, so 8 years, I've been part of the department of DLSU in 8 years. It's still one of the achievements that I am that I actually consider as an achievement, because all of these, all of the groups actually were nominated for best thesis, and all of them were able to publish research outputs before they graduated. And that has been my goal, or part of the objective that I have, is to bring the students outside DLSU. So it's the same group. They actually competed in Malaysia and won for their research on planning a supply chain for disaster recovery. And this, I have another group who we brought to Taiwan, and again, they competed and all those things. So wait. Yeah. So these are some of the works of my students. So apart from teaching, it's really one of the personal goal that I have, that students be exposed to research. So I make it a point that they actually publish something, like international journals, or even in even joining conferences. So there. And just some of the works that we had on Optimism. So during the lockdown, like few months into the lockdown, this was in 2020. So we were still productive and came up with optimization models on COVID. Okay, so these are the things that made me stay, and what I look, and again, some additional photos. One of the things that people told me before joining DLSU is that probably I won't get as much experience or as much opportunity compared to working in the corporate world. But 8 years, I've been part of the academy for 8 years, and I can say that was a complete lie, because actually DSU gave me more opportunity to go out. Like this one was when I was in Japan. I got accepted to a leadership program by Honda, sponsored by Honda. So the picture below are the same Japanese who we worked on a solar system for Cambodia. And then the picture on the right was in the British embassy. No, the house of the British ambassador, because we together with my colleagues and actually friends, we got awards for from the Newton, okay, Newton, yeah, from the British government. And I spent like 2 months working in the UK. So actually, DLSU, being in the academe, gives you a lot of opportunities, and it's a big, I think it's a lie or a misconception that you just teach when you're in the academe. So career milestone, sorry for this. Okay, so last year, again, while we were in lockdown, I received this the OYS, or the Outstanding Young Scientist, awarded by NAS. And it was the same year that I also I was promoted or got the professorship. So these are just some milestones aside from what I shared earlier. So what made me stay are the people, and what I look forward to will be continuing to work with them and continuing to further develop what I've started, which is on optimization. So actually, I'm going to share a bit on that, on what I actually do aside from teaching. So optimization, in a nutshell, is trying to achieve more by doing less, or trying to get the best when you only have a limited amount of time, of resources. So it actually it's the best representation of being an industrial engineer, because in IE, in industrial engineering, we always say that there's always a better way, and that's summarized by being efficient and effective. You have to be both. Okay, you have to be both, and that's the idea behind optimization. You want to find the best way to do something, knowing that everything is limited. Like, for example, you want to reach, if you're traveling from Quezon City to Makati, you want to reach your destination in the quickest way possible. And that's why we have Waze, we have Google Maps. Or for like McDonald's and Jollibee, they want to serve as many customers as possible. Or if you're P&G and or Unilever, okay, your target is always to produce as much shampoo, as much soap that would be able to satisfy your customer. So it's always like that. So optimization, it's not limited to manufacturing, because when it was started, or like maybe 10 years or 10 years ago, manufacturing industries would be the most common application of optimization. But because of how our world has developed, service industries are also one of the industries that benefit from this optimization. Again, if we're talking about revenue, we want to maximize that, but the maximization, the highest point that we can get, will always be limited by the resources. Like, for example, let's put it in this way. You're a manufacturer of bags, and the bags are only, or you manufacture clothes, but you only have a limited amount of fabric. So how will you decide on how to manufacture these things such that you get the most revenue possible? And also time. Okay, if you want to serve as many people, but you only have a limited amount of staff. So these are the types of problems that optimization tries to solve. Okay, and recently with how COVID, right, has affected everyone, we now hear of chip shortage. It not only affected the electronics industry, but also the supply chain of cars. So basically, COVID has disrupted, okay, supply chains, different types of supply chains. Because in a perfect world, if you're a manufacturer, you'd expect that you'll always have the raw materials that you need, and the distributor, and being the manufacturer, you can always pass these things to your distributor, to your retailer, to your customer. So everything will smoothly flow from point A to point B. But what happened with COVID? The entire world experienced lockdowns of varying degrees, right? So especially in China, when it first struck, we knew that all of the factories had to close at some point in time. And just by shutting down point A, the entire chain now suffered. And I don't know if you actually read these things, but even right, these things wherein they say that it will take a long time before the car industry could actually catch up, or even Apple had to significantly decrease the amount that it could forecast in the succeeding years. Okay, and the presence of these disruptions, of these uncertainties, are actually what my research is all about, and that's what target-oriented robust optimization is about. But I won't go into the details anymore. My research work focuses on planning how to go about your business operations, your system, knowing that these uncertainties, these risks will occur. Okay? And just like the two speakers that we had today, both of them actually touched upon artificial intelligence. And this is now the second phase of what I'm doing. It's the integration of data science and optimization. Because right now, or what I initially started, the data was static. Once you have your data, that's it. So it's like left to right. But right now we're exploring the possibility of having feedback. Okay, because we know that in decision making doesn't really stop. That's why I have this figure here. So you have your ideal concept, and then you experience what the actual scenario is. You take an action, it keeps on going on and on. So with this idea, we tried to merge data science and optimization such that we could use machine learning. We could learn from the data that is being fed to the system and improve on our model. Because we know that when you create models, it's just garbage in and garbage out. If you don't have accurate information, then whatever your model will produce will remain to be useless or will be inaccurate. And that's what we're doing right now. Okay, so we're incorporating machine learning to refine the information that is being fed to the model. So it's a merger. It's like a merger of two worlds, because for the longest time we didn't touch upon data science, but since it's becoming a significant and an important field, we try to explore also this school of thought. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, being in the academe really is you keep on discovering new things, and to how DLSU taught us, we become lifelong achievers or lifelong learners, I should say. So yeah, I think that's the end of my talk. Basically, since most of the audience today are senior high students, my advice, you try to bloom where you are planted. So just try to be the best that you can be, no matter which field you find yourself in or where you find yourself in. Yes, that's it. Thank you.